How are you doing there? Greetings to you. I was just using my GFX 100. The Actually, I never said this in a video before, even though I said it on the live stream several times, that I've never wanted a camera more than I wanted the GFX 100 because I had use of it for about 2 months last year. It's like, this is it. I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff and buy this, and extremely happy. People are very happy with the camera. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very familiar with it before buying it. This video is actually two-part. Second half, I'm going to dispel some nonsense and talk about facts. When people actually make ignorant comments about cameras, they, 9 times out of 10, they don't know what they're talking about. But first, I'd like to point out something I've been saying for the past 2 or 3 years about Fujifilm's medium format cameras. Currently, I own all three of them, the 50S, the 50R, and the GFX 100. I'm going to sell off my 50S just because I'm so in love with my 50R. It's just such a great little portable camera. Not that there's anything wrong with the 50S, I just don't need three medium format cameras. I've got so many emails and phone calls recently. I started counting them. I got just right around 20 emails and phone calls from people, and like half of those are in the UK, where camera prices are not cheap. I said something about 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago I said, listen, not only are these new GFX cameras at their current new price back then, which was about $6,500, not only are they way cheaper and way faster than any other medium format camera, be it Hasselblad or Pentax or Leica, on and on and on. I said, give it a couple years, and by say giving it a couple years, I mean today, they're going to be so cheap, people are going to be jumping all over top of these. There's a Fujifilm manager in a video that says, we made the right decision picking medium format, and he's right. The emails and the phone calls that I started getting from people were a lot of people talking about the 50Rs, even in the UK, where prices are, they're kind of up there. And currently the GFX 50R is on sale for $3,500 new, but people that are finding used like new 50Rs for 2,400 bucks equivalent. One guy said he found one for 2,200 pounds. I don't know what the pound to dollar conversion is, but I mean, that's just ridiculous. Someone was nearly giving away a 45 millimeter to go with that because I guess they were upgrading to the 100 GFX 100, or I don't know what the reason is, but I had a lot of people contact me recently. I mean, that is way cheaper than even a used Nikon D850. You can't even buy, a good used Nikon D850 for that kind of money. I mean, that's ridiculous. Literally good, minty, used, awesome medium format cameras are going for less than a comparable, really good, high-end used Nikon or used Canon. It's ridiculous. Everything I told you would come true has 100% come true today. And a bunch of people recently. I just started, counting them up in my head as to, it's a lot. And those prices are really cheap. And also, too, with the half off, the 50 millimeter f3.5 for $500. That really also, too, sucks in a lot more people. People are like, well, for 4,000 bucks, I could buy a brand new GFX 50R and a 50 millimeter 3. That's ridiculous. I mean, most of you haven't been keeping track of medium format digital camera prices these past many years, but they've been astronomically high. I mean, they're just way the hell out there. And then Fujifilm came along with the new cameras, and they're just way better, way cheaper. But now the used market at basically a third of that price, the 6,000 buck window, $6,000 window, the 50S and the 50R roughly, when they, that's, well, the 50S when it came out anyway, excuse me. That's ridiculous. Another point, too, is a very important point to make. And there's two types of medium format digital sensors. There's really three types, but most people have never seen the third type, which is a sensor that big. It's used for astrophotography on large telescopes. They're like, what are they? They're 5-inch by 5-inch square sensors, and they're like $900,000. Other than those things, there's two types of medium format digital sensors. There's type 3.4 and type 4.2. The type 3.4 is what is in all the current, size-wise, in all the current GFX and medium format cameras, 50S, 50R, and GFX 100, even though they're of different types. The type 4.2 are those that are actually found in phase 1. And Let me tell you something about a phase 1, okay? Now, we're talking about an astronomical amount of money, $50,000 plus, but I don't know if you know this or not, but because almost none of you have used a phase 1. They are slower than a constipated turtle. Is the sensor larger? It is. The camera is astronomically more expensive. The lenses necessitatively to cover that sensor are a lot larger, and they're very slow, and they're really, really expensive. Yeah. Okay, so when people say, well, that's not a true medium format sensor, and the Hasselblads and Pentax and yeah, it is. Actually, anything larger than a FX, i.e. full frame, is de facto a medium format sensor. You can't make a price point whereby which you could produce a bunch of them and the lenses that go with it. You couldn't do it. I mean, you could. You'd be like phase 1. I mean, how many phase 1 cameras do you think that they spit out? Or I heard from somebody that works there that they make somewhere around 5 or 6 cameras a month. Not a day or a week, but per month. That's how high the demand is for that. I mention somebody without mentioning a name. A former colleague, and I asked Benjamin Kanarek about this guy, and he knows exactly who he is. Benjamin Kanarek's that famous shooter over in Paris. Anyway, there's a famous shooter out on the West Coast. He contacted me, and he said he bought he dished out $50,000 plus for phase 1 system, and his exact words were, it nearly ruined his photography career. He said it was so painfully slow and so painfully inaccurate on its autofocus that it nearly, quote, ruined his photography career. So while I'll remind you that you could get, for an astronomically higher amount of money, like way the hell up here, a phase 1 camera with a larger sensor in it, it is painfully slow, hideously expensive. The lenses are hideously expensive and incredibly slow. So next time some fool tells you about, sensor size in the medium format realm, so listen, there's only 2 medium format. Are you listening closely? Repeat this to other people that say this stupid stuff. There's only 2 medium format sensor sizes for digital photography. 3.4 and 4.2. Yeah, the 3.4 sensors are the same size sensors in all the GFX and Hasselblad and Pentax and Leica. The Type 4.2s, yes, enormously huge, enormously slow autofocus, obnoxiously expensive. I mean, do you really want to buy that camera that costs more than your house? Then tell me, because everybody, and this is a really important point, there have been a lot of people recently because of the GFX. Are you listening? Are you listening? Hello? Because of the GFX 50R sale that have bought that camera off my recommendation because I said this is my favorite digital camera, and it is. Yeah, and it's not burning the, it's not leaving a trail of fire. It's so fast for autofocus, even though it's faster than all other medium format cameras, except for its cousin, which I also own, the GFX 100. But for that kind of crazy money, everybody's blown the hell away. So I remind that of people. It's like when you pick up that camera and you take a look at the full-blown RAW file, like on a 4K or 5K display, from that old sensor. I love people want to talk a bit about the old sensor in the GFX 50S and 50R. It's like, why don't you take a look at a full, 500 plus megabyte TIFF file on a 4K or 5K display from that old sensor, GFX 50S or 50R, or like, that $2,500 good used minty GFX 50. Take a look at that on your 4K or 5K display and tell me that doesn't blow you away, because everybody that does, it blows them away. I mean, several emails recently, just in the past few days, like, oh my God, I picked up that 50R. And I took some images in studio when I was doing landscapes, and I'm just blown away. It's just, this is it. I have a Nikon D850, which is awesome, but I mean, this is, just... I uploaded recently, and I did last year when I had the GFX 100 for a couple months, and I said, just take a look at these files, Just, not the composition or what the subject matter is. Why don't you just tell me what the output on? He's like, everybody had the same response. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Everybody. Undeniably everybody. Not a single person said otherwise, You can't do it. You can't sit there and look at either like a 650 megabyte TIFF file from the GFX 100 or a TIFF file from the 50S and 50R and not be blown the hell away by it. You can't. It can't happen. You can't do that. I think like 2 people did. It's like, what are you looking at these images on? And they were just JPEGs. They're like, well, these images aren't that impressive. It's like, you're not even looking at a full TIFF file. You're looking at like a JPEG image I posted up from the 50S or 50R. And I put it on like Flickr or Instagram. You're not seeing full resolution on Flickr or Instagram. It's like, what? You know, well, of course not. You know, it's not that impressive there. I said, just, why don't you download one of those enormous TIFF files and then tell me what the hell it is you see? And of course, there is no wavering on that. There's not even, it's like, you know, this whole old sensor stuff in the 50S, all that goes out the window. It goes out the window completely. Nikon D4 is rocking a really, really old sensor, but everybody still buys it like crazy because the output is amazing. The 50S and the 50R. Anyway, just point that out to people. It's like, you know, there's only two types of medium format sensors, Type 3.4 and Type 4.2. Type 4.2 is slower than a constipated turtle. It's more expensive than your house probably is. Yeah? Yeah? The lenses are huge and obnoxiously expensive. Why don't you try comparing that to like a minty used 2000, here we got on the one hand, a $50,000 camera, slower than a constipated turtle. And on the other hand, we have a minty used GFX 50R for $2,500, you know, and a $500 brand new 50mm 3.5. You know, why don't you tell me? The answer is blatantly obvious. It's not a matter of opinion or conjecture or feeling. It's just, that's it. So, Fujifilm nailed it, and I was 100% correct 3 years ago when I first started. So I says, listen, you know, these GFX cameras are a lot cheaper than the rest of them, but wait 2 or 3 years when the used market starts flopping forward, you know, because people will be upgrading. Not that it's, you know, upgrading to a GFX 100, selling off their 50Ss and 50Rs for that camera, and other medium format GFX Fujifilm cameras that are still not, you know, been announced yet, so on and so forth. Well, tell me what happens then. And that then is now. And people lack perspective. That's ridiculously cheap for a medium format camera. Ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous, actually, which is redonkulous. I don't know if you Europeans are familiar with that. The word above ridiculous. It'd be like crazy, amazing, ridiculous, and then redonkulous. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. Anyway, peace out, Girl Scout. Wait for it. Wait for it. Fujifilm.